What's up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Marielle, and this is Marielle's Eye View. So if you watched my last two videos, thank you so much. Thanks for subscribing. Thank you for liking. Thank you for the feedback. I appreciate it. Now, I know I kind of left you hanging on a cliff with the promise of telling you guys how I ended up having to leave the U.S. But before I go there, I think it's best for me to go back a little bit and give you some build up on how I ended up in the U.S. in the first place. So this story time is about how I ended up going to the U.S. So as I mentioned in my previous video, I was born in Haiti and I was orphaned at an early age. So my father died when I was about 2 years old. I never met him. And my mother died when I was about 11 or 12. When my mother died, she left me with some family members who I thought were family at least, but turned out to be just really close friends. But my mother didn't have many friends in Haiti, and so she ended up leaving me with some people she felt she could trust. Now, when she did pass away, as she got sick, she had a godson who I refer to as my brother, who was taking care of her. So when she got really sick, and I guess the doctors told her there was nothing they could do, she ended up going back to her hometown in Jérémie, which is where she ended up passing away. So this godson of hers took care of her all the way to her death. So till this day, that's my brother. I love him. Now, he was always much older than me. So when my mother passed and I was living with now this family, he ended up coming to visit me about a month or two after my mother passed away. And when he came to visit, I noticed he was very inquisitive. He was asking me all these questions about how I was doing, how they were treating me. And he kept telling me, turn around, let me see you. You don't look well. You look really frail. Now, I was always petite. I was always a tiny little thing. But he told me I looked unwell. And at 11, 12, I didn't understand what that meant. So I was really just kind of like, I'm fine. I eat every day. So, I'm okay. Now, to my knowledge at that age, there was a lot of things going on that I didn't understand. Like having to eat with the maids as opposed to at the dinner table with the family. Like not being able to use the utensils that the rest of the families use. Not being able to use plates and cups that the rest of the family used. And not being able to sleep in the rooms with the other children. Like all the other kids had their own rooms. I had to sleep with the workers. But to me, that was just a way of life. These people had always been really nice to me. They always gave me money. This man was well off. He had businesses. So every time I saw him when I was with my mother, he always gave me money. But all of that changed after my mother passed away. So when my brother came and was kind of like, you don't look well, I didn't understand where he was coming from. So he left me and said, you know what, I'll see you later. And he went back and called my aunt, who ended up calling my grandmother, who was already abroad in Florida, and telling my grandmother, she's not okay, we need to do something. So a day or two later, I got either a phone call or a visit, and I was told that I'm leaving. Nobody fought, nobody argued, they let me go. Someone came to pick me up. I got in a car. It was a rather long ride, about 45 minutes to an hour. I can't really remember the details. And we went to this area that was very secluded. I remember the house being in a remote area where there was not many neighbors, there wasn't any stores, anything around, just a really high fence. It was secluded. You couldn't see in if you were out. You couldn't see out if you were in. There was security guards at the door. It was just really weird. Again, I'm none the wiser. So I get dropped off. I go into this place that reminded me of like a school. There was other kids running around. You were told, this is where your bedroom was, and there were bunk beds. So it was set up kind of like a dorm. And so once I put my stuff down, I was told I had to go to class. So they had this classroom settings where they was teaching you your new identity. So I went into this classroom. They told me that whatever I knew my name to be for the past 11, 12 years, it was no longer that. That if anyone asked me at the airport what my name was, this was my name, this was my age, and this is where I was born. So along with some other details that, again, is blurry to me at this point. So I learned all the stuff. I was pretty bright as a kid. I learned all the stuff pretty quickly. And within a week, I was taken to the airport and handed over to a flight attendant. Now, I don't remember anyone from that home flying with me. I was literally handed off to a flight attendant. In hindsight, looking back now, I understand what all that means. I was left to fly unaccompanied as a minor, but I didn't understand what that meant at the time. So, flew to Miami. My grandmother had someone pick me up. I spent the night at this person's house, and then the very next day, my grandmother came to pick me up. It was my first time meeting my grandmother. She and an uncle picked me up, and we drove to Orlando, Florida, where I began my new life. So within the week, I was in school. Life had been great as far as I knew it. It was my grandmother, my aunt, and 2 cousins in the house. It was a brand new world, a brand new life, brand new beginning. I was excited to be in America. I mean, I knew nothing about what had happened, how I got there, but I was happy to be there. In hindsight, now looking back, I was sent to travel on someone else's document. See, what happened is this woman that ran this business had multiple passports, U.S. passports of random children. I don't know if they were her kids or other people's children. But what they would do, this is back in the 90s, so anything was, easier. They would allow children to travel on other people's passports. And typically they would be accompanied by their mother, who would be this woman or whoever. But I happened to look so much like the child that they were putting me up as, that they sent me with the flight attendant. And there was no questions asked. There was never any problem. So that's how I got to come into the United States. Not the most glamorous story. I didn't have my own document as far as I'm concerned now in hindsight. So I migrated illegally. It's my reality. I didn't have any control over it. I was a child. It was a blessing, however, because I don't know what my life would have been in Haiti had I stayed with that family. I don't know. There was inappropriate behavior going on from the older kids. I mean, just all types of things. But I thank God. I'm not proud of that story, but it's my story. In this channel, I plan on being super vulnerable. I know somebody out there is going to feel me. Somebody's going to relate. And if you can't relate, just be empathetic. You don't have to judge. You don't have to, say you wouldn't have done it that way. I plan on being an open book, and hopefully you guys receive it that way. But this was my story of how I came to the United States. So if you know anybody who migrated illegally, if you crossed the border, if you use your cousin's passport, back when that was, prior to 9/11, a lot of things were easier. Nowadays, this would never be able to go down. But if you have a similar story, drop that in the comments. Let me know. Again, I like to go back and forth with you guys. Let me know how you're feeling about my content. If you like it, if you hate it, if I should go away. I probably won't, but it's good to know how you feel. So drop that in the comments and let me know how you feel about how I came about in the U.S. and let's have a discussion.